this is the part where if we had theme music, we'd be playing theme music. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, that is Eddie Vega.
And that is Chibi Orduña.
Other side.
Well, he's over there now.
And this is Words, the program where we bring you an intimate performance and conversation with a poet so that you can get to know the person behind the poetry. Eddie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. You know, this is my last week before I have to report back to school. I know. And usually that's a lot of excitement in my life. Like, I want to go back because I love to go back.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of pitter patters happening.
A little bit different this time around, you know.
There's definitely some noise. There's some.
Right. So check on your teacher friends out there. That's what I'm telling. Check on your teacher friends.
Yeah, that's a can of worms we may or may not open tonight. But we are good. We're here. We're still at home, which is great. And we have a phenomenal, speaking of educators, a phenomenal guest joining us today. Eddie, who do we have?
Oh my gosh. Deborah D.E.E.P. Mouton. She's an internationally known writer, educator, activist, poet, laureate, emeritus of Houston, Texas. Formerly the #2 best female poet in the world. Founder of the longest running poetry slam venue in Houston called Houston VIP. And you know them. They got a pocket full of poems. Her work has appeared in Houston Noir, Black Girl Magic, Fjords Journal, Crab Orchard Review. She's been on NPR, BBC, ABC, Apple News, Blavity, Upworthy, across the TedX circuit. She's a contributing writer for Texas Monthly, which is actually the last place I saw her at. I saw her at the Texas Monthly offices once, like last year, I think. Maybe it was, I don't know what year it was anymore, because I don't know where we are anymore.
Time is a construct.
She was there. She's an amazing performer. I've been looking at her videos like all day and reading her stuff. We are thoroughly immersed in all. We're immersed in the deep is what we are.
Mm-hmm. We are rolling in the deep is what we're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, Deborah D.E.E.P. Mouton.
What's up? How are you guys doing?
I mean, all things considered.
Yeah. You know, I said I was going to stop asking people that, and then I still default to that question.
It's such a hard thing to like break yourself of, because it's like, oh yeah, things are good, but it's like, are they really though? Are they?
Not at all for anyone. That's the problem.
Well, we are so excited to have you here with us today and to have this conversation. You are a powerhouse of not just a poet, but a person. So we're so happy that you are here. Let's just start the show off the way we always do and just hand it over to you to read some poems.
Sounds good.
Do the damn thing.
So I'm going to read from my book, Newsworthy. It's outside. There, something like that. Mirroring images is not my strength. Yeah, so, you know, as the world begins to battle, not begins, that's a lie. As the world confronts that it has always been battling multiple things in America, and race is a high priority in that, I dedicate this reading to that. And because I said I would say her name until something moved, killer. They need to arrest your killers. Here we go. First time around the block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Feet syncopate hopscotch under ripe street lights. Sun crawls down the backside of the mountain. We sand our hands in 4 squares on rubber balls. We bounce Sally Walker and a cool drink of Kool-Aid powdered in sugared Ziploc till all parts of our mouths stain cherry rebel defiant. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Streets so alive in LA. Don't nobody want the night to come, just want the day forever. Run like highway. Turn ourselves invisible when mama calls. Don't take that ball all angry the day done left you, boy. That street light not hot yet. Ignore the glow for the sting of pop rocks in our cheeks and big league tiring our chew. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 this time when mama calls. Seems more ambulance in her throat. More flashing light in her eyes. More than just halogen flickering bulb on concrete. She says our names like they are blood moons in a clear sky that no one wants to see. Like a routine turned into red mouth outcry. A frenzy of our shadowy feet cockroaching from the asphalt towards our mother's arms unaware. 5, 4, 3, 2, run. The unknowing left that night. We watched their feet turn Rodney soccer ball. Police no longer a place to run when lost. Police run longer or be a lost place. colored lips gushing a bloody drink, more thirsty for the darkness than the sun, and we, a chalk outline number needing to be stomped. So this book kind of, and I know we'll probably get into this, but this book kind of for me was like a vomiting of reaction and of interpreting things that happened in my own life when it came to police brutality and police interactions, as well as looking at the world around me and honestly, just reacting. And so it kind of all stemmed from this idea that started around the time that Trayvon Martin was killed. And I found myself in multiple conflicting emotions, one as a mom and knowing what it's like, to lose a child, and then other as a Black woman and a Black person in America. So this is for Trayvon. I remember the iced tea we used to brew on my mother's back porch just outside her garden. How it steeped against the ground till deep-seated, how the sticky, sweet Alabama honey stuck to our everywhere. I wonder how hard they had to scrub to get the Trayvon off. Was it calm George calling it in? Dream of paradise under an Arizona rainbow, sepia ignorant bliss. Whisper under breath, if we stack flowers at every site, this world can be Eden again. I stand here in the wilderness of kitchen, the linoleum tiles a dry bubbling beneath my bare feet. Our nursery is quiet tonight for all the right reasons. The area of Crib Mobile plays soundtrack to a muted television. Over a casket of fruit spoiling before a bite, under the crescendo of a kettle, and the most shameful whispers say, I'm so glad we had a girl. But the reality is that like gender doesn't discriminate in that way, right? Death doesn't know gender, as most things shouldn't probably know. And for us, we have to constantly be willing to reinvent ourselves to survive and to live. And I found myself really being reinvented by becoming a mother, especially of two children, especially one being a Black boy. Even though my daughter's in just as much danger, she just won't be on the news. That's kind of how it works. And I didn't write about him for a long time. And the first piece that kind of fell out after him was called Release. And I'm going to read that for you. When I decided to become a mother, people warned me how hard it would be, that having a child is like forever having your heart wander outside of your body. But after birthing two hatchlings into the Gulf, I can tell you that I have come to know motherhood is not being any less than human. It is more about learning how to envelop the sea. It is watching your skin soft to slick to sucker to cradle. It is training your blind spots for the infinity of sight lines. Each pregnancy surge of hormones turning you more cephalopod. And if I never believed in evolution, my daughter confirmed me a sea monster. My son made me more Ursula, more sea witch in drag. My confidence has been a constant camouflage. My spirit seen the bottom of the ocean more times than I want to admit. But my children give the poor unfortunate of my soul venom and a song. Give me a reason to plot and scheme us into a better sea. Made me unearth myself from the sand every dawn and dream. Did you know that an octopus has 3 hearts? One to take all the rejection life sends, and the other 2 to make sure that it has something to breathe for. Their midnight risings often feel of palpitation. A tangled sleep is me wrestling with myself. Their most annoying parts are when I see too much of my ink in them. The world has tried to tell me that I can't have it all, the abyss and the surface too. I respond with my children's constricting laughter. We tighten the choke, the doubt that we can be this big and bigger. Don't you know that a kraken is merely a woman with too much to lose to the sea? That if you come for her offspring, she will drag you under. Did you know that a mother has enough strength to swallow a ship whole? Davy Jones is just a woman after too many miscarriages. I have a heart in that locker too. I know what it's like to be a mile-long myth, to have to balance being visible with just being, a bubble gurgling through self-conscious waters, but I wouldn't trade a limb for them, wouldn't beg for bones or legs. I'm happy drowning my sadness in their saltwater cure-all. At the end of the day, when we have been stretched to distant oceans, when the pirates of work and sleep and this stage have tried to steal our unison, chest dump, and propulsion, we be devilfish, be the things mermaid fear and envy, make man into nightmare and expectation into sinkhole. We are not hard. We are an 8-legged doomsday, a unity town terror, our tentacles tangling us betwixt one another. Motherhood is a monstrosity waiting to surge. It is a strangling safety. It is knowing that you have all the reasons to whirlpool and you are just waiting for the moment to release. I think I got one more. I think that's right, Chibi. I'm hoping this will work. That's what I got. So I feel like you have to come to a point where you just make some decisions for yourself. You know, like you just decide things aren't gonna be here. You know, aren't gonna stop here. I'm gonna make them something more. And there's a piece in the book called The Pact that I really get to read, so I'm gonna read it tonight. Which is just like that thing, right? That need to understand what's going on around you and to still find a way through it, to still find a decision in your mind that's going to say, I still survive. Unfortunately, sometimes that comes at the cost of other people. Slit your wrists now. Blend your broken with mine. Us be a family. Have a pact. Sealed in blood. You will do it. Whichever of us they come for next won't run or cower. See the red scope light on you. See how your chest welcomes a sniper's round. Know how much power lives in blackout. We can't shy away. Cut deep into darkness, round the tendons and muscle inside your cheek. Kiss me. Death has a badge and a reason to brandish. Hurry, this urgency is a now kind of thing. We all gotta go. Sometimes it's now, it's just promised more swiftly. It's now and now. We don't know, no, never. Speak our names. Say we are the same or fuck us. Hope it's you. Just so it ain't me. Hey, friends. I promise I'll end with something lighter.
It is what it is, you know.
Right?
That's where you got to go. That's where you got to go.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I've always kind of admired about you and your performance and your poetry is that you've always been kind of a powerhouse of,
thank you,
both in your performance and in your writing. Now, I do have to ask, because I've known you for years, and I feel like only recently did I realize that DEEP was an acronym.
It's okay.
What does DEEP stand for?
I'm gonna give you like the full thing. So I had this name that I created for myself when I was very young, like 8th grade. And I was like, what do I want people to cheer from the stage? Like when I'm done, like, do I want it to be like, she's amazing? And I was like, no, I want it to be like profound. Like I want it to be like deep, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, that's nice. And then as I like got older, I was like, you know, it can't just be this vain thing that says like, you're going to cheer for me wherever I am. But, you know, success for me was defined by a lot of other people before it was defined by me. And I wanted to have something that reminded me that, you know, I'm here for a purpose. God put me on this earth. And so that's a long answer to say it means determined to excel in everything promised. That I told myself I was going to be focused on the things that God promised for me and made me for in this world. And it wouldn't be necessarily chasing money or chasing fame. You know, if those things came, that would be great. But I really felt like I had a higher purpose in the work and in the craft that, you know, I was blessed to be able to work in.
So that was 8th grade when you came up with that?
Yeah. I mean, the acronym, I think, like, has probably changed a couple times to what it means. But it was always centered kind of around the same thing.
And clearly it worked.
You know?
It was working.
Yeah, I think it also reminds me, you know, every time I step on stage that I'm not stepping on there for myself and that I, you know, maintain some kind of humility and knowing that, like, what I'm good at is I put words together, yo. Like, it's really, you know, like it's that simple. And I think, you know, sometimes it's easy to let your head fill up, especially if you're winning slams and things like that. But at the heart of it, like, I'm just putting words together. So, you know, remember that there is a grace in that.
Well, your ability to put words together got you to a place that few have gotten. You are the Houston Poet Laureate. You were the first African American Houston Poet Laureate.
Tell Black people.
So all this month we've been focusing on kind of like the business of poetry. And so for anybody that's watching that doesn't know, like, what does it mean to be like the poet laureate of something or somewhere? And what are some of the things that you accomplished in your role that you're most proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. So the poet laureate position, in essence, is like an ambassador of poetry for a government issue, a government entity, whether that's a city or a state or a country, right? Because there's one definitely for the country. But they're kind of appointed by local leadership, and they represent poetry for a set amount of time. So my term was 2 years. I think, in Houston it's 2 years. In Boston it's like 4, which is crazy. That's like a really long time. I feel like I hit it full throttle, and I think 4 years I'd have like tapped out. At year 3, I don't think I could have done it. So shout out to Portia for that. But I think, for us, it's really being able to make literacy and poetry visible, to take it off of the shelf of elitism and say that it is an everyday thing, that is an accessible tool that we can use to communicate, to leverage ideas, to connect. That's the goal of the poet laureate position. As far as what I did with it was a little bit different, just because I was the first performance poet that had the position in my city. Most people kind of came from, a traditional publishing background. And so they would do like book collections, and those are definitely necessary, and there's no shade in those. It's just, I took a different path. So I decided to say yes to everything for 2 years. That was my promise to myself, which is why I read myself crazy. And so I got to do things like, I got to collaborate with the Houston Ballet and create, dance piece that went up after Hurricane Harvey to celebrate Houston's resilience. I got to create a opening video for the Houston Rockets season, which that was their best season, can I say? And that's probably, and they probably need to come on and hire me back, right? And then I actually got to perform on the Texans 50-yard line for 38,000 youth, which is like probably the thing that I was the most excited about, is being able to have like young people fill a stadium and to listen to poetry, right? Like that's insane. Like I came outside and it was like thunder through my body. Like it was just, things like that make me feel like the work is necessary and relevant. And
now you said that you were the first spoken word artist to be poet laureate of Houston.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, as most poet laureates have been traditionally, have been from the book world.
Yeah.
Was there a stir in the city or in the community about that?
It's really funny. There was kind of 2 things that made all the headlines go right for me. There was slam poet, which I hate that term, but slam poet becomes poet laureate, and then there was like black poet becomes it's like one of 2 things were kind of running. All the poet laureates in my city have been women, so I wasn't going to get anywhere with that. Like that didn't matter, right? But so I kind of saw it. I think the thing that worked for me is, doing these kind of large dedications and things for the city, like the state of the city where there's like 14,000 people in a ballroom. For me, that's like, hey, it's a Monday morning, where some people, it's just not a comfortable place for them to be in front of all those people. And so there was a real asset in being able to be comfortable, kind of being thrown to the wolves in some ways, to be on camera all the time, to be able to kind of just jump in and do it and not have to have a second thought about it, I think was definitely a benefit for me.
Mm-hmm. Now you, I've seen you read from this new book of yours, which is the work in it is not new. You've talked about how. Let me just put that banner up real quick. Boom! Go buy her book.
Yeah.
The work in it is not necessarily new. It's poems that you've written over the past number of years. And like you said, you do have a stage background. And I've heard you say, like, I'm going to perform the stage version of it, not the page version of it. How is that transition of taking your work that lived on stage and then transitioning it onto a page?
Yeah, I think tricky always. It's probably one of my weakest points, I think, or that's not true. Not anymore, but I think I had to definitely learn how to do it. I had to learn mostly like, what do I want people to come back to, right? Like over and over, because that's what you do in a book, right? Whereas on stage, you get kind of this one hitter quitter chance to like harpoon somebody through the soul and like hope it sticks, right? So I think, just thinking through that, I had the time for people to like let things ruminate and figuring out how do I want to layer that into the text was a big thing. This book actually also has performance pieces in it too that I can't read out loud. which I was really intentional about having pieces in the book that had to have multiple voices, you know, like, so group piece, just trapped in the middle, like, you know, that people have like, are you going to perform this? And I'm like, how can I do that? I need 2 other voices. Like, that's not going to work, you know? My book release, I actually did to dance. I didn't do a traditional reading. I had everything acted out in dance, and I was reading kind of off stage. And so I really wanted it to, you know, everything I do is such a hybrid, and I'm leaning more into that, not as like a flaw in the ways that I think, but that like my Aquarian scatterbrain is worth something, right? and being able to conceptualize how things that don't normally meet and mix together can mix together very well.
And how long did it take to put the whole thing together?
The book?
Yeah.
First draft was 6 months. It took me another 4 years to edit edit, submit, publishing deal was probably about another 4 years. So the original of all the poems was actually really fast. It just was the going back and saying like, okay, that was cool, and you could probably throw it on the stage, but like, let's be more intentional and let's edit it down. Which is why I get frustrated when people are like, I wrote this poem on a receipt this morning, and I'm like, oh, fam, like it could have been so much better had you left it till tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like,
let it marinate a little, you know.
right? So you know, yeah. So definitely, it's kind of a longer trek.
Is that usually your writing format or style, where it just kind of like blah all comes out, and then you know go back and ruminate over it later?
For the most part, you know, I think it really helps. I honestly think the poet laureate position pushed a lot of that on me, or out of me, because it would. So I'm going to tell you a story about the mayor, Mayor Turner. I hope that you hear this, because I'm still mad at you for this. No, I'm just joking. I'm not mad. He knows I love him. But there was a time when, you know, I kept asking, are we going to need a poem for the like swearing in of the poet laureate? And everyone's like, nope, you don't need it. Nope, you don't need it. We're good. We're going to do this fast. It's going to be quick. And 15 minutes before the announcing, they were like, we're going to need a poem. and we needed to be like custom about today and about being the poet laureate. And I was just like, fam, for real? Like, I've been asking you for a month and you didn't need anything from me. So it kind of was this thing where like from then on out, I really realized that was going to be a skill that I was going to need, that I was going to be dropped in situations time after time again. There was like, and we want new words from D, right? Like, or, you know, I published something about Hurricane Harvey, and then Houston Chronicle hit me up and they're like, we don't want that same poem. We want a new poem. And it was just like, okay. So I got used to being able to kind of like, you know, I think writing is very much a muscle. And I think that a lot of that was training that muscle to be able to kind of get a good first draft that maybe is a better first draft than most people come up with, because they just haven't trained that muscle. And then to be able to say, like, if I have time to go back to it, I can definitely like polish it up and make it better. But if not, you know, now sometimes it had to go.
About training the muscle, but what about training the editors?
Yeah.
The other people out there who are demanding that you have a poem, like a new poem, and to say, hey, I don't just write these things in the morning, you know, or I don't just, that they take a process, take a time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. In my poet laureateship, I did not say that enough. I think I went with improv and just said yes, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, yes, and we can totally end. Yeah.
And I'll have it in 2 hours.
You know, I remember even before I performed on the Texas stadiums, I thought that I was going to be able to read the poem because it was a custom piece, and I had like 500 other custom pieces. And I got there 2 hours before the show, and they're like, oh, no, we definitely need you memorized and mic'd. And so like, no, this is 4 hours before the show. I have a 1 hour workshop in the middle of it that I have a 30-minute ride to and from, right? So like the time is dwindling, right? Like the window. And I was like, okay, well, we'll be memorized. And I recorded it on my phone as a voice recording, and I turned my radio to me just spitting the poem the whole way there and the whole way back and the whole hour in between. And when I got on stage, I like just, and the words did what they need to. I could not tell you what that poem said now for my life. But for that moment, right? Yes, and it worked.
You had it. I totally relate, because I think, you know, many people have cracked the joke that Chibi writes 2 poems a year. But this idea of like external forces, like for pushing you to create new work, that has happened a lot in this pandemic, to where it's kind of like, oh, so I am generating work because there's something out there that's like pushing me and driving me to create this work. Now with your book, there's definitely, it seems like external forces that were driving the content of this piece. You know, you talk a lot about like race relations. It's very, very prominent in your poetry and in your book. How are you right now? How are you processing what's currently happening in the world?
Yeah, I think, prior to me having a really honest conversation with my daughter, I think I was really not well because I was trying to figure out how do I shield this kid. I was changing the channel fast, or like, we're only going to watch stream things so you don't see the news. And I think I was really trying to hold on to some facade that things were okay for their sake. But, my daughter asked me, like, who's Breonna Taylor? And it was just like, nope, there it is, right? Like, we're not getting away from this. And I think just sitting down and being able to have a really honest conversation with her about the world and about how the world sees her and how the world will see her when she walks out of these doors, and how, I'm going to hold her hand anyways, and I'm going to be there anyways, has been like very sobering. Definitely I have to limit the amount of news. I only watch the news if Trevor Noah says it. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Oh my God, I do the same. It's
right?
Trevor
Like,
Noah and John Oliver for me.
Yeah, Trevor Noah. I'll get a Stephen Colbert every once in a while, but like, if they're not saying it, I don't really think I should know it, or unless it comes through like so big that it hits Instagram or something where I'm scrolling. But just really being good to myself and saying, like, I'm going to ride my bike and plant things instead. I'm going to, like, I'm just going to self-care a whole lot more, I think has been a lot, really, really helpful in getting through all of this.
Now that piece, sorry, that opportunity came up for you to write that about that, talking to your daughter, and it appeared in Texas Monthly.
Yeah.
And what was the response to that?
The hate mail. I got a lot of retweets. It was like the ninth highest read article in Texas Monthly for the week. So, kind of hit their like scoreboard, which was great because I kind of got, the editors hitting me up and like, yeah, your piece is amazing. Apple News picked it up, which was great. And then I got the first email that was like, instead of talking to your daughter about police, maybe you should be talking to her about how she should be respectful. And I was like, okay, cool. And that one I think I let slide. I was just like, I'm not gonna do this today. The next one that responded that said I was weaponizing my blackness, I decided to respond to, which I would not advise anyone respond to things because the stamina of a troll is much stronger than you ever will know. And so though I loved my response, it was very timely, and it definitely said things like, I know words are hard and it's hard for you to understand things. But guess what? You read that wrong. And I hope that you enjoy your Civil War reenactments and your Klan rally, and I'll talk to you soon. It resulted in like 7 other emails following, trying to dismantle what I had said, which I was like, okay, now you're exhausting my resources. So I think, for me, this is the first time I've kind of been confronted with that. And I instantaneously understood why Ta-Nehisi Coates doesn't want to do book signings, right? Like, I was like, I know now. You don't want to deal with these people. Like, which is not to say I won't do book signings, but it is to say, like, I think that there is a limit and a boundary that you have to set for yourself. And so for me, it was like, don't read the comments and don't answer the emails with weird subject lines.
That's what they always say. Do not read the comments. Don't even go look at it.
Yeah.
But so you have a daughter.
I have a son too.
Yes, you have a daughter and a son who are how old? Pardon?
3 and 7.
Those ripe ages.
Sure, the terrible 3s is what we call it. Because there are 2. Forget 2 is great compared to 3.
Eddie's like, wait till they become teenagers.
I don't want to. No, I told my daughter that I'm going to freeze her and put her in a shrink ray and keep her at 12. So, yep.
How is parenting in the pandemic?
Crazy. Yeah. even before our district said that the kids were not coming back, I was like, my kids ain't coming back. So I was like, I ain't gonna be there. The kids ain't gonna be there. Whatever that means for my life, I'll figure it out. But we ain't coming. I would say that I've given a lot more grace than I've done a lot of things I didn't think I was gonna do, like buy a bounce house. I never thought I would own an inflatable, but time said that I needed to own an inflatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of screen time. There's a lot of, crafts and arts and craft projects going on in our house. My daughter now does weekly museum installations of Lego art, so that's fun. My kids are definitely creatives, and so I got stuck with some pretty good partners in the home. My new coworkers is what I call them, and they're pretty good aside from walking in on me going to the bathroom.
You're like, mommy needs her me time. Go to the bathhouse.
Both of my kids know the word privacy. I don't privacy.
What about the balancing of your work and your creative side with full-time parent educating?
Yeah.
What has that been like?
It's insane. We have a really great network, so their grandmothers still come by. My mom was here earlier today teaching my daughter how to sew. So I got to say, I'm going to go take a nap for an hour. Bye. And my husband's mom took them a couple weeks ago for the weekend and just kind of let us breathe. So that's been great. But the day to day, it is nonstop from the time that we are waking up, because we don't get up, right? Like a child slaps us in the face and is like, waffles, from that time to the time that we kind of collapse on each other watching, Chrisley Knows Best in the bedroom, because I can't stop watching that show for some weird reason. And so, it is nonstop. I think for me, my kids know that I'm an artist. I make jewelry. My kids sit and paint and work with me. When I write, my kids, sit under me and read and write, which is difficult sometimes. But I just try to carve out 1 to 2 hours a day where I sneak off to my room, and my husband's a really, really great partner. And being able to say, I know you really need to get that done, so sneak away. I'm working on another stage production right now. After the opera that I released in March, I really just kind of fell in love with being able to see a larger production that I've crafted go up on stage. And so I've been kind of leaning in that direction. I haven't really been writing as many poems as I have stories and stage work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, so the writers during the pandemic have become much more intentional about their space.
Yeah.
Did that happen with you too? Do you have a writing space, a work time, a writing time?
Time is when I can take it. That's no, there's no time. I'm not gonna lie and say yes, I've cracked it. No. A space though, I've always had a studio. So I'm in my office now, which is like the shrine to me. If you look, it's like, oh, there I am. Right. But yeah, I've always had a designated space, a really nice chair, where my laptop sits, and I can kind of close the door and bring the screaming down maybe 3 decibels to kind of get into my own space. So that's it's beneficial.
Yeah, we have a rule here in the house where it's like my husband has his room and I have my room, and when the door is closed, it means we're working. It's essentially we're not at home, we're in the office.
Yep.
Knock if you absolutely need something. And it's so important to create those boundaries in those spaces, especially when you do kind of work on your own schedule when you can, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a little harder with a 3-year-old, but yeah, he doesn't care at all.
Neither does the dog.
Fair enough.
I'm looking at you, Cookie. So I want to dive into that you briefly mentioned, which is the idea of working in other mediums. For those that don't know, you wrote an opera.
I did.
You wrote a play and are writing a new one?
So I wrote the opera. I've written multiple plays. They just haven't gone up because I'm scared. I was scared of myself. And then I'm working on a choreo poem right now.
Okay. Talk a little bit about how that process is different, like writing in opera versus writing a book or poetry in general.
Yeah, a libretto is very poetic, but it is you have to think about things like the sounds of words. It sounds stupid, but you don't think about sounds, but things like, do lines end in an open consonant where a singer could hold it longer, or is it a narrow consonant where they're going to have a harder time pronouncing? Are there like random bits of alliteration that are going to become trippy to sing that normally could be spoken out, and have that kind of rhythm? And then how do you artificiate that rhythm into a song, right? Especially when you're not composing the music, how do you figure out how to build it into the phrasing so that even if the composer stretches things out, you're still going to get the rhythms and the motions. And so I played classical piano for like 6 or 7 years. And so I think that really helped aid me in kind of thinking through the musicality of the words. And it's probably why I write the way that I do as well. And so it definitely was different. It wasn't, instead of like, I'm going to take a poem that's very like one moment, narrow in and expound upon it, it turned into, I'm going to take a moment and figure out how do I tell that moment? How do I build that tension, right? So in Marion's song, which is the opera I wrote, there's a scene where Marion is getting ready to go overseas and her accompanist is getting left behind. And it was like, what do they say in their final moments together? That's history probably never recorded, but I can build into this really beautiful moment where they're able to like honor that they're growing apart and still work and praise each other's growth without getting in the way of each other, And so I think thinking through the emotionality of things and things like that are kind of how I lean when I start writing for stage, for screen. I have a short film that I'm trying to shop right now. And so just being able to kind of like think about how the work lives bigger and broader maybe than the page does sometimes.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Speaking of different genres, is the last time the second to last time I saw you, we saw each other at AWP, I think.
Yeah.
But I was at the Texas Book Festival, and they had a breakfast at the Texas Monthly offices.
It's a good breakfast.
Very, very Austin type tacos. That's a whole other discussion. Anyway.
Yeah, let's not. Can we not talk about the tacos?
No. You want to talk about tacos?
I don't know. I love tacos. I don't know that I would call that
what they have. Okay,
a taco.
We're not talking about those tacos.
There was something very often very not taco-ish about them. Yes,
I call them tortilla sandwiches because I feel like that is a more accurate description of what they are.
There was food.
Yeah,
there was food.
It was edible.
There was mimosas too. I didn't get one, but I heard they existed.
I did not either.
And I ran into you, and I was with my son. So I want to thank you because you gave me some great cred with him. Because all of a sudden he's like, "You know somebody here too?" And she's like, "Lord of Houston," like, yeah. And you were talking to an editor for Texas Monthly, and all that stuff was going on. And then soon thereafter, I started to see you pop up on Texas Monthly. Now, were those two things related?
Yeah, in some ways, I had already worked with Texas Monthly before doing their Texas Monthly live event and got to perform live. So they were kind of enamored with me. And so it was easy to kind of transition into I did some animated work with them. They took a poem and animated it for me, which is up on their site and my site as well. And then after that kind of turned into them saying, well, Texas Monthly never publishes poems. Can you send us a poem? And I was like, sure, no. And so instead of sending a poem, I sent an essay. And they were like, wow, that was so well written. Do you have anything else to say? And I was like, I have all the things to say if you give me a foot in the door. And so it's been a really great relationship to be able to, kind of skip the pitching process in a lot of the times and to just reach out to an editor and say, hey, I have a thought. Can I send you a draft and let me know if you guys want to publish it and then give me money, which is always good money.
Now, you, speaking of essays and hybrid works, right now, you are finished, I believe, creating a new work, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. What's this new work that's in the process?
Yes, it is sitting with agents right now to see who is going to represent it. But it is a analysis of Black womanhood through mythology, right? I started thinking through, actually, this is because of Jackson Neal, I should say that. He decided to have a podcast called Myth Stories, or Myth City, I think it's called. And he invited me on and he's like, what are the myths you grew up with in your culture? And I was like, I don't know. Like, Black people don't have myths like that. Like Anansi? Like, what you want me to say? And so, I said yes, and because that's what we do, right? And so I remember sitting in the parking lot and thinking, I have nothing to say. Like, what am I going to say? I'm still here. It's been 2 weeks and I still have nothing. And then I was like, my mom always used to say she had eyes in the back of her head. That's mythological, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I started talking about that idea. And then I was like, well, why doesn't that myth exist? Why is there not a myth of how women got eyes in the back of their head to stare down their children, right? Especially Black women, right? And so I decided, well, maybe I should just write it. And so I wrote this story about, how Black women arrived at getting eyes in the back of their head. And then I was like, that transitioned so well into some of the memoirs I had about my mom and, hiding on the top of the toilet to whoop me in the shower because, I outran her during the day. And yeah, my mom is gangster, y'all. Like, she is gangster, right? And so it just turned into this thing where I was able to take moments of my life in memoir and blend them with these other, explanations of things my aunts would say and my grandmothers would say, and like, where did all that come from and what does it mean? And even thinking like, what do I get to make and shape and shift for a culture and generations that come after me, that I can start stories that will live even longer than me. And so it's kind of a hybrid of memoir, of poetry, and of mythology, which is different and weird and great.
Yeah, I love it. Now you mentioned that it's you're shopping it around with agents. Again, it's like shifting back to like the business of poetry. Like, what does that mean? Shopping it around. Like, what does that process entail?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a few different ways to go with a book. This is considered a fiction book, even though it has memoir in it, because if it's a nonfiction, I have to write an 80-page book proposal, and I didn't want to do that. So I was like, it'll be fiction. So the mythology is kind of whatever. And so you can either just go straight to a publisher. Usually indie publishers will take book submissions straight on. I did an indie publisher for my last book, and I love them, and it's great. But I also wanted to figure out, how do I take that next step to a national level that they're building a platform for, but maybe haven't quite arrived at. And so then it turns into querying agents. And then if an agent likes what they see in kind of a one-page summary of your work, then they'll ask to see a full manuscript. Then if they like the manuscript, then they'll work with you to get it ready to sell it to a publisher. The publisher buys it, and then it kind of takes off of that route of figuring out how do you package it, market it, edit it, and get it onto the shelves.
So that's where 4 years of your life goes.
That's where 4 years of your life goes. Yeah. So, but the good thing is, even while that's happening, I have this kind of collection that's sitting over here, and I'm already starting to work on the next thing. Right. So one thing I hate that I did to myself was, after Newsworthy, I just wanted to baby it and hold it and cradle it, and I didn't want to do anything else until it got picked up. And I wasted so much time that I could have been creating the next thing, So I've kind of learned from that mistake and said, yeah, this can be my baby, but it can like sit in the little playpen, right? Like, and I can move on to managing some other project.
And if there's one thing I know about Aquarius is that you got to have multiple projects going on at the same time. We were talking earlier, for those of you who don't know, D.E.E.P is an Aquarius.
I am.
My husband's an Aquarius. So I understand the way that brain kind of goes everywhere.
Yeah, my husband hates how I clean, because I clean like 3 things in one room, and then I skip to another room, and then I go. He's like, "Why didn't you finish?" And I was like, "Well, a little bit everywhere is better than one room clean, right?"
No. See, I'm the kind of person that, like, as I'm cooking, I'm cleaning. So like, as soon as like I put the plate on the table, the kitchen's already done. Right. We can sit and eat.
And what are you?
I'm a Gemini.
Okay, that's right, because Geminis, I know
that. And Aquarius are not like that.
I don't know what to say. I'm just not. No, I'm not. I know my mom's a Libra. She tries to be that. Like, she's like, just watch while you cook. And I'm like, yeah, I totally was doing that. And then my food burned. Like, I can't do that. It doesn't work. You got to, one thing. And then you see the next, and then it's over here. And then you see the next, and then it's over here. And by the time that you realize it, your child is now 6 years old. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So we've multiple projects, right? 4 years waiting for Newsworthy to come together. I'm trying to keep track of exactly how many different projects that was.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen.
No?
That's cute, though, that you tried that. No, Newsworthy was, like, I was editing Newsworthy while I was writing the libretto.
Okay.
And then I was premiering the opera and workshopping the opera while I was writing this next collection. So I try to tell myself 2 large projects a year. That doesn't include essays, individual poems that are submitted, commission work. Like, it doesn't do that. But just 1 book, 1 stage production written a year. And then how they actually come to light, that's different. So, like Newsworthy got a new life in being picked up in Germany. And it's going to debut again, as a translation next fall, which is great and wonderful. And yay, all the things, right? but it kind of extended what I felt like was going to be kind of this premiere and living on, in the ways that it does, to kind of like giving it a brand new life. And so did the pandemic, right? So where I was going to be shopping this opera now to, Opera America and living, in other theaters around the nation, that gets shifted to kind of land the same time I'm supposed to be, debuting in Germany, right? So like now it's like it's going to look like an explosion of things all at once, when in reality, things kind of were already in motion in some ways, for years, even at times.
Do you think it was easier for the other projects to come to fruition because of the first one getting published?
Yes. Hands down.
It opened the floodgates kind of thing. It's like,
yeah. So something about, and my friends told me, like, don't go with an indie publisher, do a book prize and win. And I was like, I did that for 4 years, sitting it to stuff. And it just wasn't moving, And I'm so happy that I went with Bloomsday. Like they were smaller and they're local, but they were on their grind. Like they went to bat for me in ways that I never expected they would. And they really did give me a perspective about my work that I don't think I would have gotten from anyone else. And so, some people just take off and they're like the biggest thing tomorrow. And some people have to like kind of step up, like one at a time, take a little bit bigger. And I think my career has really been kind of climbing the stairs.
Mm-hmm. I feel similarly. I had a manuscript that I got published, but that manuscript was sent to contests, sent other places, given no's a few places before it finally got a publisher.
Yeah.
And I was tired of it.
Oh yeah.
I was tired of the book and those poems and stuff. Did you feel the same way?
Oh yeah. I mean, poems from Newsworthy have existed since 2015. Like some of the pieces, right? So yeah, some of them I'm like, please don't make me say that again. But I realize that for a lot of people, it's their first time hearing it. And especially in the wave of what's happening right now, they become reborn, right? Mm-hmm. And so I often tell students, and I tell myself the same thing, as like, how many times does Aretha Franklin have to sing Respect, right? Like you can read this poem again. You really can. She's been singing it for decades. You're going to be okay, right? And so I think as long as you kind of come to it with that understanding that like it might be brand new for someone else, you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, outside of these big projects, you also work a lot with the youth. You're a mentor and an educator. I was on Coog Slam's virtual open mic recently, and I dropped your name, and everybody just exploded into tears. Yeah.
Oh, my sweeties.
Talk a little bit about the work that you do in your community with youth, both college and below.
Yeah, I was a coach for Metaphor Houston for about 7 years. After I transitioned from that, it just turned into kind of making myself available. I run a collection or a summit called the Colony Summit. That's a free resource for writers of color in the city. Quarterly can meet and just gain resources. And so just trying to always figure out a way to kind of reach back, to put myself in a position. I believe that I get indoors and I might, get into a brand new open door, but I hold it open for the people who are coming behind me. And so any way that I can read a poem or that I can get feedback, or, I'm the one that people catch at an open mic in a corner afterwards and they're like, can I read you this thing I wrote on a napkin? Right. And I think that those moments are important. They're important to say like, yes, this is good and it can be better. And this is the way it can be better. Mm. And if you're willing to grow with that, I'm willing to help you.
Mm. Now, are you originally from Houston?
I'm not. I'm a transplant. I'm originally from Cali, California. I moved here in 2006 because God told me to get up and move. I had nothing. I had no friends, no family, no job. And it took me about a month of living in hotels in my car to land on my feet. And since then, Houston has grown into being my home. I had kids here. My husband says once you have a Texan, like push it out your body, then you're a Texan. He says the same thing about being Cajun, which I don't know how I became Cajun, but I'm that too somehow. I don't know how that works.
Houston, Louisiana, or
Bayou.
Nope. And so, Houston is definitely, I feel like, where I grew up. I moved here, I wondered why my parents were so weird about me getting up and moving to Houston by myself with nothing. And then I realized, I was 23. you idiot. Like, you were so young, right? That was crazy. But you know, so my adult life, I've really come into myself here in Houston. And so it is home. You know, it is very much home, even though it might not be where I'm born.
Mm-hmm.
And now, where does your love of lemonade come from? That's what I want to get.
This love of lemonade has permeated so far back. It definitely has to be California. That one, it has to be. My grandfather used to be like a connoisseur. Like, he was like, nah, there's not enough sugar in that. That's not enough lemon. He's like, it's got to get that right in you, right? Like, it's got to do that to you. And I've like fallen in love with lemonade. So now I am bougie. I am bougie about tacos. I'm bougie about lemonade. Those are kind of my bougie things. Like, where I'm just tortilla sandwiches, man.
Tortilla sandwiches. Exactly. You know, like I'll be completely upfront. It's delicious, but it ain't Mexican food. It ain't a taco.
Fair, right? Just like I'm gonna go on the limb and say I don't think Tex-Mex is Mexican food. I'm gonna say it. I said it. I said it.
It's Tex-Mex. It's 100% Tex-Mex.
And so moving from California, where like Tijuana was like 2 hours away, you know, like, and now I'm like, oh, this is new.
So do you do that southern thing of like half lemonade, half sweet tea, or is that just a bastardization?
No, the Arnold Palmer is real.
Okay.
But it is a different drink, right? Like it morphs into something else that is not lemonade.
Okay.
So,
and what about adding like strawberry or pomegranate or?
It depends on how it's done.
Okay.
If it's infused, I'm okay with it. But if it's just like you plopped a strawberry in there, nah, that's not. No. I'm not gonna roll with that.
This is a whole subject of conversation.
And then
I'm telling you,
limonada.
See, limonada is another thing because so check this, right? Like, I love there's this place in Houston called La Tapatía, which is like my favorite thing ever. And I'm like, I went in and I'm like una granada limonada, right? Like, that's great. And I drank it and I was like, that's not lemonade, but damn, it's good, right? Like, I'll take it, right? But I don't know. In the scale of lemonade, you know, the range of greatness, I don't know where it lands.
And that's the funny thing, is because depending on where you are in Latin America or even in Mexico itself, the green one will be called a limon.
Yeah.
Or a lima.
Yeah.
And then in English, the green one is for sure is the lime, right. And then the yellow one's the lemon. So you have all these people getting mixed up when they ask for a limonada, they're thinking they're going to get a lemonade. Yes. And then they're not. And in some places they will. I mean, it's just kind of like.
Well, and I've been deceived many a time, right? Like I have ordered and not gotten what I thought I was going to get and not been happy about it. But I keep ordering it because it's just necessary, right? Like, to just try. I might not try it more than once, but I'll try it.
Okay.
You know? I'll try it.
I'm going to let you have that. I hate lemonade, so.
But why?
Not my thing.
It's just like an ice cold lemonade, which I'm not supposed to drink ice cold drinks at all. But ice cold lemonade.
Oh.
Somebody said
touches the soul.
You gotta try a cucumber limonada.
Ew.
Ooh.
Okay,
oh yeah.
Okay, Aaron, I'll try that.
One of my former teammates, Johnny Major Rivers III, just started a new company here in San Antonio called Thirsty AF, and they deliver aguas frescas of sorts, and one of them is the cucumber lemonade.
I feel like what I should do is have a YouTube review where it's just like the snobby lemonade connoisseur and just travel around the world like bitching about people's lemonade. Like, that's what I should do.
Yeah, you could be the Anthony Bourdain of lemonade.
Man, I'm telling you, there's a market.
It's out there somewhere. Pick it up, because
outside of writing plays, writing operas, writing poems, writing books, writing
children.
Also going to review lemonade.
Yep. Review lemonade.
Now let's talk about the other thing you also do. You make jewelry.
I do. See can you see them?
Let's get a little closer.
The eyes today. The eyes. Yeah, I do.
How'd you get into that? Where does that come from?
It originally started because I was going to Women in the World Poetry Slam and I was broke and I needed a way to make money. I've always been an entrepreneur. Even when I was little, I would like sell hair bows like for Easter. Like, I was always pocketing somebody's cash. And so, I needed a fundraiser. And so I started creating jewelry. But then I found this real satisfaction in being able to create something and have it be done.
Mm.
And like, I didn't have to keep revisiting it like I do with the writing. And so it became like this other thing that feeds me. That's like, if you want to be creative, but you don't want the pressures of having to come back to this and wonder if it should be jelly or it should be jam, right? Like, and the connotations of each of those words, like, bah. It was just a way that I was able to like, okay, I can sit, you know, with wood and paint in front of me, or I could sit with metal and just bend and find what shape falls in, and then say, oh, I like that, so I'm going to put it on it, you know, put it out for people to like. And people have liked the work and have bought it and have had really unique pieces that they get to wear, you know, that I made, which is cool. And I get their money, which is also awesome.
Boom.
Boom.
And is all of that available on your website?
It is. Just go to my merch site, my merch page, and I have an Etsy site as well, which is Live Life Deep on Etsy.
Yeah.
So you can kind of follow me multiple ways, and I'm always updating and throwing new stuff up. If you follow me on Instagram, which is Live Life Deep, I actually will usually preview things there at a lower price, and then I put them on Etsy and have to go put them up because Etsy charges fees. So, you know, if you want the newness, then you can get it on my Instagram before everybody else and be a fly in the streets.
Boom. Now, I know as a fellow performer, I'm jonesing for the stage, right?
Yeah.
I like to be in front of people,
Yes.
and just that interaction, that live interaction with people, which doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. What, I guess, you know, Jerry Springer's final thoughts. What are kind of like your thoughts on like life moving forward? You know, what's
Yeah. I mean, I think depending on the day, you're going to get a different answer from me. You know, my husband jokes because he's like, one day you're buying everything and you're like, it's okay, we'll make more money. And then the next day you're like, we're all going to die. Hold on to it all. Right? Like, and so I think that the same answer goes with me. You know, some days I'm like, I'm going to write a stage production because one day the world will open and we'll all be able to sit and, you know, in a gallery and theater seating. And then the next day I'm like, if I don't learn how to master Twitter, I'm going to die in peril, right? So today I'm landing more on the, you know, the hopeful side of saying that I think that, you know, the word that I decided that was going to be my 2020 word after all this started was pivot, right? Of like that I'm going to figure out, well, you know, I can't be on stage right now. And I probably wouldn't have written essays, as many, especially as I've been writing, if I could have been, right? So is there another platform that says I can still be relevant, that I can still be impactful, that I could still kind of stir the pot that's not on stage, right? And if there is, like, can I develop that muscle too while I'm sitting still? Because eventually, you know, even the 1918 crap suddenly became something different in the 1920s, right? And then there was the Harlem Renaissance, and then there was like birth of creativity and life and like beautiful, right? So that's got to come sometime. Now I might be 45 by the time it comes, but you know, it's got to come.
What's wrong with 45?
You know, ain't nothing wrong with 45, right? So for me, it's like figuring out if this is a new season, how do I pivot? How do I accept what this is? How do I reinvent my craft? How do I do something that I never did before for the sake of just learning how to do it, knowing that it might influence my craft later? You know, when I was playing piano, I never knew that I'd write an opera. I just knew I loved playing piano because my grandmother did. And so later on in life, it came to be this thing that served me really well. And so I think now is the time to like do the risky thing, try something brand new, learn a new language, you know, try crafting and pottery and, you know, pour resin for the first time. Like, just do crazy crap. Because eventually it's going to be something that merges together to make your, you know, yourself as an artist stronger and better.
Yeah.
Well, is pottery going to be your new medium?
You said what?
Is pottery going to be your new medium?
No, I'm going to pour resin though. That's coming first. Resin is, I've been like Googling resin kits for the last month. So it's going to come. Resin is coming.
I mean, Adrian Van asks, is there a medium you haven't conquered? And clearly the answer is no.
Conquered is such a weird word. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm an instrumentalist. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a pianist. I would say that I learned to play piano for 6 years, right? Like, but if you put a piano in front of me, I can't sight read because I haven't done it in forever, right? Like, and I mean, I know how to move my hands, but it's not going to be the thing that you expect from someone who trained, right? And so I really do feel like in a lot of ways I've tried a lot of things, including fencing. Yeah, I did that until they told me that one butt cheek gets bigger than the other, and then I wasn't playing. That's not cool, right? But I've always been someone who's like, if it's artistic, I'll try it once, and then then if I don't like it, I mean, what did I lose?
Just a couple hours, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
the world's coming to an end.
right?
Hey, but before that, I mean, you've got messages of hope because you talked about the beginning that you'd end us on a happy note.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna do this poem called "Brag" that I never do because it's braggadocious. But I'm feeling myself right now.
All right, take it away.
Feeling myself,
ladies and gentlemen. Deborah D.E.E.P. Mouton, because it's French.
Mouton. I challenge this poem to find a flaw. Because this right here be color, cut, and clarity. Let me introduce you to Supernova Incarnate. June Cleaver meets Sister Soldier, a full plate, a match burned in the middle. I can hold the sizzle of salmon croquettes and the liquor of my baby's wine on my hip. Lead a training while two-stepping 6 loads of laundry up 2 flights of stairs. Watch my bathroom shine and still fill your belly to a satisfied thing. I make postpartum depression rethink its life choices. I make suicide give up on itself. How many mothers can woo a sit on maternity leave, build a kingdom before the umbilical cord heals, milk themselves of their own honey while driving? The next generation's intellect suckle at my teat. I am a child-loving phenomenon. Did I mention Houston borrows my voice for itself on my slow days? Did I mention how my husband knows the climax of all my titles? How he waits for me to come home like the earth waits to be heated by the sun? I am the reincarnation of Samson's chariot. I am a raised fist in the midst of a snowstorm. I am the poet you claim to be in your elevator pitch, and this ain't about to win no slams. Ain't about to come up. Ain't about to be no come up. It's not willing to trigger itself for your applause, because praising yourself ain't about no tens, but this poem be the closest thing to self-acceptance. So I will write myself this final stage, the way I inscribed a way out of homelessness 3 times over. Let this body be my own shelter poem, my voice be a gawkable chandelier. Swing yourself into midnight dance party. Let Black history follow my shadow. Let their ends meet here, even when they don't. I am full enough to fill in the gaps. Been doing it all my life. Crown myself the princess of petty, the queen of clapback. I have remapped the world in stretch marks around my waist. These fire starter thighs rub a hole through every critique I never requested. Haters be humbled. Watch me and all my Laureate, all my TedX decorum, all my coach and mentor, all my fuck up and fall gain speed. Try to keep up as I rise. The sun and the moon rest at my heels, and I boast until the page that beckons my pen submits, until the poem I crafted 15 minutes moves you to tears, until I laugh a song that may sound like a crack in a new octave. Call me mama, like all the world kneeling at all of my fabulous, and I dare you to find something wrong with that.
Thank you for that. I think that art, they turn to us, they turn to artists for more than just telling the truth, but sometimes for those messages of hope.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to get bogged down in like all the crap going on in the world right now.
Yes.
And it's better, not better, but we have to have these messages that take us beyond that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime. I think we got to get to a point where we just start, I think we're all in grief, right? We're grieving the world that we lost. We're grieving the things that we lost this year. We're grieving the people that we lost this year, right? Those are heavy things, but we have to get to a point where we accept what this reality is, right? And we figure out how do we work through it? How do we become better on the other side? And then we let go of normal in hopes for what the future may be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. You have always been a beacon of hope and a powerhouse of a poet and a person. So we were so happy that you agreed to come on and chat with us.
No, anytime. I love y'all so much. And thank you for making this platform available. This is awesome.
If anybody wants to tip your poet, she does accept cash apps. It is Live Life Deep. You can also find her merchandise, both books and jewelry, on her website, livelifedeep.com/books and merch, or just go follow her on Instagram at livelifedeep. That was Deborah D.E.E.P. Mouton. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah. Now, Eddie, let's talk about what is happening next week.
Okay, so usually this is where I say, oh my God, I'm so excited about, but this is, and it's not insincere. But this time, I'm really excited because Carmen Tafoya is going to be here. She was the first poet laureate of San Antonio, a poet laureate of Texas. She's been in this poetry business for a long time and actually started some Mexican American studies programs throughout the area. She's a pioneer, and she's a local. And I've been to her house, so she's amazing. I can't wait to see her next week on here.
And if anyone wants a sneak peek, she is performing at an event you're hosting.
Oh, that's right. There's a Gemini Inc. I forgot what this event is called, but there's an open mic for the event on Saturday, and she will be there performing along with some other great Gemini Inc. Voices. Like Carrie Clack is getting an award, and I think he might come and read too. So. Yeah,
it is called A Gathering of Voices. I put it on my calendar, so
A Gathering of Voices.
A Gathering of Voices. That's happening on Saturday. Thank you to everyone that joined us tonight for this conversation. As a reminder, all of these conversations that we've been having are available on our Facebook page if you want to watch the videos of previous conversations, or they are now available via wherever you get your podcasts, be it Apple or Spotify or Google. You can just search for Blah Poetry on any podcast platform, and you can listen to any of our previous episodes. I believe the Ebony Stewart episode drops tomorrow. So you can go back and listen to those. And also the Blah Poetry Spot. Make sure to follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, Write Art Out on Instagram, WRITARTOUT, to find out what we're doing on Monday nights. Every other Monday is an open mic if you want to come share your work, or every other Monday is a writer's group if you want to come create new work. So join us.
I think this Monday is the writer's group.
It is. This Monday is the writer's group. Wow. Until then, we will be back next week with another episode of Words and Shit. That was Eddie Vega.
And that was Chibur Dunya.
Thank you so much for joining us, y'all. Be safe. Good night.